We continue now at the top of Daf Dalet Amud Beis in Mesechet Kesubos. This is Kesubos Daf 4b. The Gemara continues, Hachi Kamer. Here's what the Brisa was saying in terms of the word v'chein. It's not saying that it's exactly the same halacha when the woman becomes a nida right before the wedding. That is not exactly the same as the situation of Avelus. Rather, it should be read as follows. V'chein misha pirsa ishto nido. Likewise, in a situation where his wife becomes a nida right at the wedding, v'lo bal, and they had not yet had the relations. So in such a situation, hu yashin bein ha'anashim v'ishto yashena bein ha'anashim. He has to sleep among the men, and she sleeps among the women, again, because we cannot trust them to be together in such a situation. And the Gemara continues, L'meimra da Avelus kila le minida. Does that mean to say that Avelus is more lenient to the person than a situation of nida? As Rashi over here says, kila le lavor ala minida. In other words, people will transgress easier by Avelus than nida. That's what it seems like from over here. The Avelus lo mehemet le, because when it comes to Avelus, we don't trust the person. The anida mehemet le, and when it comes to nida, if they've already had relations, then we do trust them to be together. Again, by Avelus, even though they've had relations, we do not trust them. But is that really true? Do we really find that a person treats Avelus more leniently? But didn't Rav Yitzchak bar Chanina say in the name of Rav Huna, Kol melachos sheisha osa lebala, any work that a woman, that a wife normally does for her husband, nida osa lebala, nida is also allowed to do for her husband, chutz, with the exception of the following, chutz mimzigas hakos, except for pouring the cup for him, v'hatzoas hamita, and spreading the linen on the bed, v'harchatzas panav yadav v'raglav, and washing his face and his hands and his feet. Those things she should not do for her husband. In other words, in a situation where she's a nida, she should not do those things. Ve'ilu gabe Avelus tanya. Now, whereas by Avelus we learned as follows in the Brisa: Afal pisha amru, even though they said ein adam rashai lochuf es ishto, a person cannot force his wife lios kocheles v'lios pokasas, to paint her, to put the paint on her eyes and to put on the makeup. But emes amru, but in truth they did say as follows: mozeges lo hakos, she does pour the cup for him, umatzas lo hamita, and she is allowed to spread the linens, umarchatzas lo panav yadav v'raglav, and she's allowed to bathe his face and his hands and his feet. In other words, it seems to be by Avelus we are less concerned that they're going to violate anything, and that's why we're more lenient. We say that she's allowed to do these various things like mozeges lo hakos, matzas lo hamita, marchetzas lo panav v'raglav. Those things are panav yadav v'raglav. Those things are allowed because people take apparently Avelus strictly, and we're not afraid that they're going to violate anything. And the Gemara answers, Lokash, it's not difficult. Kan ba'Avelus didei, kan ba'Avelus didah. There's actually a distinction between when he is an Avelus and when she is an Avelus. And we'll take a look at Rashi over here. Rashi says, Malachos sha'isha osa labala l'kamon tanilu b'paragafalpi. This is going to be taught later on, the various malachas that the wife does for her husband. Chutz mi mezigas hakos lahoshet lo. Again, by Anida, she shouldn't do these things. She shouldn't give him the cup to drink. V'atzoas hamita v'archotzas panav. And again, the linens and the washing of his face, etc. Shaderech kira v'chibayin, because those are things that are going to bring them close together. Ubayin lidei hergel davar, and then it's going to come that they might actually end up having relations because of these activities, and that's why they're prohibited by nida. Ein adam rashay lochav es ishto. Now by Avelus it says the person cannot force his wife bimei evla while she is mourning, kishameis avia uima, meaning when her father dies or when her mother dies, you can't force her to wear these various makeups. Pokeses maveres rak al paneh. Again, that's a way of putting makeup onto the person's face. So again, you can't force that in that situation, but we do allow mozeges lo. She could pour for him the cup. Apparently, we're not afraid that anything is going to happen. Alma Avelus chamirale. So here you see the opposite. Here it seems Avelus is something that's taken more seriously than nida. And so the Gemara ultimately answered, Kan be Avelus didei. It depends if you're talking about when he's in Avelus or when she is in Avelus. Leolam Avelus kilale minida. Really, Avelus is something that is treated more lightly than nida, and it's something we'd have to be a little more careful about. V'hani masnisa hachim etarz. And here's how you answer the brises. Hadikatani la'el hu yashin bein ha'anoshim ba'avelus didei. When we said over before that they had to separate, that's in a situation where it is his Avelus, meaning over there we have to be extra strict. V'hachdikatani mozeges lo. And when we say we can be a little more lenient by Avelus, ba'avelus didah, that's talking about when she is in Avelus. Ba'avelus didakoi, tekatani ein adam rashay lachav v'chula. That's why it says a person can't force his wife to put on the makeup, etc. It's talking about when she's in Avelus. Alma ba'avelus didakai, meaning you see clearly that's talking about her Avelus. She'eino road She doesn't want to put on this makeup, and so therefore he can't force her. Now, the reason why when she's in Avelis, we're a little more lenient in some of these activities, and she can pour him a cup, etc. Because over there, even if he has the Yetzer Hara for relations, since she is in Avelis, she's not going to listen to him anyway, and so there's nothing to be concerned about. But the Gemara continues, but in that earlier brisa, it was not only talking about a situation where he's in Avelis, it says the father of the Chassan dies, or the mother of the Kala dies. So clearly it was talking about both scenarios over there. And the Gemara says, no, ki katani ashara. When it mentions the case of the mother of the Kala dying, that's going on the other halachas. It's not going on the halacha of separation. Rashi over here says, don't you see that when she's in Avelis, we're also very strict in terms of separating them? And the Gemara answered, no, ki katani ima shel Kala. When we talk about the mother of the Kala dying, ashara, that's on all the other halachas that are relevant to that case where she dies before the wedding. That we bring the mace into a room. But that line that they have to sleep separately, that's only in a situation where the chassan is in Avelis. But the continues, Umishani bein Avelis didei lavelis dida. But is this really true that we make a distinction between his Avelis and her Avelis? V'atanya, but we learned in a brisa as follows: Mishameis chama v'chamo. So let's say you have a case where his father-in-law dies or his mother-in-law dies, meaning to say that would be the wife's father or mother. Eino yachol lachuf es ishto lios kocheles v'lios pokasas. Again, he can't force his wife to put the paint on her eyes and to put on the makeup. Elakova mitasa. Rather, he turns over his bed. V'noheg ima Avelis, and he has to conduct together with her. He has to be an Avelis together with her. And the brisa continues, V'chein, and the same is true the other way around. Let's say by her, Shemeis chameo, chamosa, that her father-in-law dies, or her mother-in-law dies, again, meaning his father or mother. Eina rashalios kochelos v'lios pokasas. She's not allowed to put the paint on her eyes. She's not allowed to put on the makeup. Elakofa mitasa, rather she has to turn over her bed, v'noheges imo Avelis, and she has to conduct herself with him in Avelis. And so over here it says V'chein, and it seems to be saying that the halachas are all identical when it comes to Avelis Didei or Avelis Dida. And the Gemara says, no, you'll have to say as follows, Tani ba'Avelis Didei. You'll have to put in the following line. By the case where he's in Avelis, you say as follows, Hu yashen bein ha'anashim v'ishto yashena bein ha'anashim. That in such a situation where he is the Avel, he sleeps among the men, and she sleeps among the women. But the Gemara says, 1 second, can you really put in that line? Havechein katani. It says the word v'chein, so whatever line you put in when he's in Avelis, that line should be inserted as well when she is in Avelis. And so the Gemara says, no, the v'chein could go on some of the other halachas, ki katani akichul v'apirchus. The v'chein can go on the putting on the makeup, putting on the paint. It goes on those situations. It does not go on the separation. Again, they're only separated when he is in Avelis, not when she is in Avelis. But the Gemara continues, va'imo katani. But doesn't it say the word imo? It says with him. My lav imo b'mita. Doesn't it mean to say that she is with him in the bed? Rashi over here says, va'imo katani. My lav imo b'mita. Alma Avelis didei nami mehemen. It sounds like she is with him, even in a situation where he is an Avelis. Isn't that what it means? And the Gemara says, lo, no, that's not what it means. It means imo babayis. It means she's with him in the house. Uchida amar le Rav l'chia brei. It's just like Rav said to Chia, his son, bi'apa nahug avelusa, in front of her, then you should be noheg avelus. Then you should conduct yourself as an avel. Delo bi'apa lo tinog avelusa. But if your wife is an avelus and you're not in front of her, you don't have to conduct yourself as if you are in avelus. Rashi over here says, lo imo babayis. It means with him in the house, meaning v'tayim ulamishum demehemen nakadlo. This has nothing to do with trusting them together, not trusting them together. That's not the issue at hand. Elulashmin, and rather it's to tell you as follows: Dein avelusa mutal olea elabefanav. The fact that he's an avelus, that's not a concern to her unless she's in front of him. Mishum kavodu, in order to honor him. V'cheinu, and the same is in the reverse. But when it comes to him, ein avelusa mutal olav. Let's say she's an avelus. That avelus is not a responsibility on the husband. Elulefanav lechvod, unless he's in front of her, and that is a way to honor her, to conduct himself as an avel when he is in front of her. And the Gemara continues, Ravashi Yomar, Ravashi says, how are you comparing? Can you really compare the Avelus over here in this situation, meaning the Avelus in a situation where it happens right before the wedding? So that's a completely different scenario than a regular Avelus. Avelusa Dialma, when it comes to regular Avelus, so Chomer, that is very strict in their eyes. Nobody is going to act in a way that's inappropriate in that case, and that's why we trust them in such a scenario. But Avelus, the halacha, but the Avelis over here, where it's really at the eve of the wedding, so Kevan de Akilu Rabbanan, so since already the Rabbanan are being lenient, we have all these leniencies in this case to conduct the wedding, even though they just had a situation of Avelis. So Asi Lizilzule Be, so there's really a concern that they're going to act in an inappropriate manner, and that's why there's a need for more separation in our particular case. And the Gemara continues, my kula, what leniency exactly is Rav Ashi referring to? What leniency are we referring to when we talk about the leniency when a person's father or the mother of the kala died right before the wedding? The Gemara says, Ilema dekatani, if you're going to say that the leniency is as follows, that it was taught, boel be'ilas mitzvah poresh, that they have relations with each other and then they separate, and that's happening even though the father, the chassan, or the mother of the kala died. But haza mishum delochal olav avilusa, that's not actually a leniency, because over there that's actually permitted because the Avelis isn't chal yet. Why? Because Ila Rabbi Eliezer, because if you're following Rabbi Eliezer, at sheyotzmi pesach habayis, the halach is the Avelis only starts when the dead body leaves the entrance of the house. And Ila Rabbi Yoshua, and if you're following Rabbi Yoshua, at sheyistam hagolal, it's when the casket is covered, when the burial is finished, so that's when the Avelis starts. In either case, the dead body is still over here in a room in the house, and therefore you have a situation where there is no Avelis, so that's perfectly permissible to have the Beilas mitzvah. So what is the leniency? Ela dekatani, rather the leniency is that it was taught noeg shivas yimei hamishta v'yachragach noeg shivas yimei avelos, because it says first they do the 7 days of the celebration and then they do the 7 days of the mourning. That's already a leniency that we have over here again, and that's why there's more of a concern if they are together. Rashi says golel. What is the golel? Zeu kisoy shel arna mes. Again, that's the cover, that's the lid, so to speak, of the casket of the dead body. Rashi also notes plugsa de Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua b'moed katan. The machlokas about when Avelos starts between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, that is found in moed katan. And the Gemara says, Amar Mar, the master said, we said previously, Bein kach uvein kach lo yivo lo be'erev Shabbos v'lo b'motzai Shabbos. In all situations, the first act of relations should not be on Friday night, and it should also not be on Saturday night. And the Gemara says, Bishlama be'erev Shabbos. I understand Friday night. Mishum chabura, that's an issue because there's an issue of making a wound, as we've mentioned earlier. Ela b'motzai Shabbos, but when it comes to Motzai Shabbos, amaylo, why not? What's the issue? And the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera says, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Hey Amud Aleph.